stairway because I assume he probably saw these guys, Kevin. They confront him and then he came out. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't, obviously we're not him, we don't know. That's the thing. Yeah. Now, what Oswald did, and this is important you understand, he walks right out the front door of the Texas School Book Depository and heads east. Walks right out the front door and heads east. I've walked this with Blake Kroger. We walked this whole thing. Now, if you walk, I'll just give you this information. If you know what the Texas School Book Depository looks like, and you can see the front door there. If you walk out the front door and go east, you go left. Okay? And he went left or east, and he walked for 7 blocks and stopped at the corner of Elm and Murphy Street. So you remember, now look at me right, we'll look at this real quick so you're not confused. So remember the turn from Houston onto Elm, right? Remember that turn? And this is Main Street? Well, Elm Street didn't just start here, it continued. So this is what he does. He comes out of the depository and turns this way, opposite of where the president was shot, for 7 blocks, and he gets to the intersection of Elm and Murphy. Okay, so he's at this point right here. He walks 7 blocks, and he stops at the corner of Elm and Murphy. You know what's at the corner of Elm and Murphy?
Murphy?
Murphy? A city bus. And what Oswald does at 12:40 p.m., these blocks are long, by the way, he boards this city bus. How do we know that? How do we know he got on a bus? Close, but
There's a camera.
somebody was driving that bus, and the guy that was driving that bus was Cecil McWaters. And according to Cecil McWaters, Oswald got on the bus at about 12:40. And what was weird about this, it was not a regular bus stop. Okay? He just flagged the bus down. Cecil McWaters didn't know any more than he didn't know it had happened. So he just stopped and let the guy on. But you're right, he did pay, and he got a bus transfer slip, which is what you can see here, that was found in Oswald's pocket later. It was found in Oswald's pocket later. So how do we know he got on a bus at 12:40? Take a look at his ticket here. Now this is the ticket right here. Look kind of similar?
Give it extra.
Does this look a little similar? Yeah. This is a different one though. Well, not exactly. We'll talk about that later. Keep that thing in mind. So at Elm and Murphy at 12:40 p.m., Oswald boards a city bus according to bus driver Cecil McWaters. And McWaters later stated that Oswald did not get on the bus at a regular bus stop. He knocked on the door, entered the bus, paid his fare, and sat down. Okay? Now, because of the assassination, what's the traffic like in that area? Heavy. And so Oswald got impatient, and because of the heavy traffic that slowed down, he got off the bus at 12:44. He got off the bus at 12:44. So because of the heavy traffic slowing the bus down, Oswald, because of what he's done, is impatient, and he leaves the bus at 12:44. After he left the bus, he walked to a nearby Greyhound bus station with maybe the thoughts of getting on a bus, but instead he hails down a taxi cab and catches a taxi at 12:48. So, because of the heavy traffic slowing the bus down, Oswald leaves the bus at 12:44. After leaving the bus, he walks a very short distance to a nearby Greyhound bus station and catches a taxi cab at 12:48. How do we know that? Because the taxi driver, William Whaley, testified that he was the guy that gave him a ride. So he catches a taxi cab at 12:48, and that was according to taxi driver William Whaley. Now, William Whaley asked Oswald to take him to the 500 block of North Beckley Street in Oak Cliff, which was a suburb of Dallas. So at 12:48, Oswald gets in a taxi cab. and he tells taxi driver William Whaley to take him to the 500 block of North Beckley Street, which was in Oak Cliff, which was a suburb of Dallas. So Oswald asked taxi driver William Whaley to take him to the 500 block of North Beckley Street in Oak Cliff, which was a suburb of Dallas. Well, Whaley later testified that he said to Oswald when he got in, he says, "Gee, I wonder what the hell this uproar is all about." He had no idea the president had been shot, but he could tell something was up because of the traffic. So he says to Oswald, "I wonder what the hell this uproar is about." Whaley later stated that Oswald didn't answer, so he figured he was just one of those passengers that didn't like to talk in a taxi cab. There are people like that. Okay? So Whaley never thought anything of it. He asked him a question, he didn't answer. His thought was, what's this guy just doesn't like to talk? Well, at 12:54 p.m., Whaley dropped Oswald off at the 700 block of North Beckley Street, which was actually 2 blocks further than he needed to go. In other words, here's Beckley Street, here's the 500 block of Beckley Street. He actually dropped him off at the 700 block, which means he drove past 500 and dropped him off there. Okay? It was 3 blocks beyond where Oswald wanted to go. Okay, so he dropped him off at the corner of Neely and Beckley Street. Okay, so this would be this would be Neely, and this would be Beckley. Okay, Beckley, Neely. Dropped him off at the corner of Neely and Beckley Street. We're going to talk about that. That was at 12:54. Well, after Oswald got back out of once Oswald got out of the taxi cab, he walked back to a boarding house that he was living in. So people, because we don't know what Oswald was thinking, said, "Oh, gee, I don't want this guy to drop me off right at my house." So we had him drop him off 3 blocks up and then walk back, because probably figuring, and again, this is all circumstantial, probably figuring, if they asked the guy, he said, "No, we dropped him way up there." So we had him drop him off and then walk back. Now, he was living in a boarding house at 1026 North Beckley Street. He was living in a boarding house. You know what a boarding house is? It's this lady, I've been there many times. It's a place, this lady was a big home on North Beckley, 1026 North Beckley, and she rented out what in the house? Rooms. So he had a very small room in a boarding house. And he arrived at 1026 North Beckley Street at 1 o'clock. And ironically, what was happening at 1 o'clock that day? The president was pronounced dead at the same time he arrived there. Well, he goes into his boarding house and he grabs a light-colored coat and a .38 caliber revolver, leaving the boarding house at 1:03. So he gets there at 1 o'clock, he hustles into his room, he grabs a light-colored jacket and a .38 caliber pistol, and leaves at 1:03. Well, he does. His wife and him are separated. We'll tell you that story a little later, too. Hannah says, I thought they had a family. He did, but they weren't getting along. He was very abusive, and so they were separated. Good call. So he grabbed, how do we know he did that? How do we know he left at 1:03? Earlene Roberts, who was a housekeeper for one of the residents who lived there, stated that. And here's what she said. She said, quote, Oswald was not running, but using a fast walk when he entered the boarding house. He went out walking fast the same way as I was listening to the broadcast about Kennedy. So he walks in, grabs these 2 items. Does she know he has a pistol? No, you'll know why later, but she certainly knows he has a light-colored jacket, okay? And she reports that he left at 1:03. You got all these witnesses. Now, from the time he left 1026 North Beckley for the next few minutes, we have no idea where he went. But we do know that he reached the intersection of 10th Street and Patton Avenue in Oak Cliff. Well, we'll get to that. 1:15 p.m. So there's no specific witness to the exact route Oswald took from his boarding house until he reached the intersection of 10th Street and Patton Avenue in Oak Cliff. 1:15 p.m. Now, when he reached 10th and Patton in Oak Cliff, he was less than a mile from his boarding house and approximately 2 miles from Elm Street where the president was shot. So he's in Oak Cliff, a suburb of Dallas, about a mile from his boarding house and about 2 miles from where Kennedy was assassinated. Now, in this area was a police officer by the name of J.D. Tippit. It's an unbelievable story. J.D. Tippit is a police officer in the Oak Cliff section in the vicinity of 10th and Patton. And of course, as he's cruising in his patrol car, what does he get over his radio? The All Points Bulletin of Lee Harvey Oswald, the guy that might have shot the president, and everybody's supposed to be on the lookout for this guy, right? Well, Tippit hears this message on his patrol car, and he stops and parks his car in front of a store called the Top 10 Records. Top 10 Records. And according to witnesses, how do we know he did that? Witnesses said he went into the store, he asked the customers to get out of his way, and he asked the owner to use his telephone to make a call. To this day, no one knows who he called. His wife, his mistress, the police department didn't ever have a sign that he called them. So he makes a phone call, and to this day, no one knows who he calls. But he calls somebody. J.D. Tippit. He gets this description of Oswald. He parks his car in front of Top 10 Records, which is an interesting store. Still exactly there today as it was at the time, not a bit different. Phone is still. He makes a call on this phone, and the parts. I kind of screwed up a little bit. I shouldn't have given you a time on when Oswald got the 10th and Patton. But the 1:15 is when J.D. Tippit in his patrol car witnesses Oswald for the first time standing at 10th and Patton. So let's correct that. So 1:15, back at 10th and Patton, Officer Tippit, who's now back in his patrol car cruising, comes across Oswald. He called before he confronted Oswald. So what does Tippit do when he sees Oswald and says, hey, this guy kind of looks like the guy that meets this description? What does he do? Stops it. If you look at this map right here, you can see, and we're in this area here, you can see that Oswald actually is walking this way. Okay? He's going to eventually end up walking the other way, but he's walking this way. And Officer Tippit sees this guy walking along the sidewalk, and he believes he's the man that fits the description of the missing employee from the Texas School Book Depository. So he stops his car, and he beckons Oswald to come to his car. So picture Tippit sitting in his car. Now, if Oswald's walking this way, Tippit is driving this way. And he stops Oswald and he beckons him to come. Oswald walks in front of the police officer's car and leans both hands on the window as the window is rolled down. I just said that wrong. God dang it. Oswald's walking down and he asks him to come over, so he leans against the passenger side window, inside, looking across at the officer. Okay? Officer Tippit, after talking to him for a very short period of time, steps out of his car and walks around to the front of his car to go talk to Oswald. Oswald, now picture this, because I don't want to screw you up, because I don't know what I'm... Here's the car, right? Here's the steering wheel. Here's the sidewalk. Oswald's walking here. Tippit stops him. Oswald comes over to the window, leans against the window. Tippit talks to him. He asks him to stay there. He gets out of his car and comes around to here. Oswald pulls out that .38 caliber pistol and shoots Tippit 3 times across the hood of that car. Shoots him 3 times across the hood of the car. In those 3 shots, Tippit's hit once in the chest and twice in the stomach. So Oswald's walking down the street here. Tippit's driving his car. He sees him. He meets the description. He stops him. Oswald comes up to the car and leans on the passenger side. Tippit gets out of his car to come around and have a more intimate conversation with him. As he gets to the front of the car, Oswald pulls out his .38, shoots him 3 times over the hood, hitting him once in the chest, twice in the stomach. Oswald then circles to where Tippit is laying and shoots a final shot right in his temple. So this guy had intentions of killing this police officer. Now you talk about conspiracy theorists, people don't shoot police officers if they're innocent. Okay? He shot him 3 times. Shot him in the chest, twice in the stomach, and then circled around the front of the car and fired a final shot into his temple. How do we know that? Because Helen Markham, who was standing on the corner of 10th and Patton, and you can see her on that map, here she is, the asterisk. Oswald, after he shoots Tippit, does he continue this way? No, he turns and goes the other way.
How do you spell her?
Oh, it should be M-A-R-K-H-A-M. Okay? So the shooting of Officer Tippit was witnessed by a lady that stood on the corner of 10th and Patton, Helen Markham. After he shot Tippit, Oswald took off on a fast walk, opposite of the way he was going originally, walking right towards her, straight towards her. She was so terrified by what she had witnessed, she simply covered both eyes like this with her hands, not knowing what Oswald was going to do. She didn't run. She was so terrified and scared by what she had witnessed, she simply stood there and covered both of her eyes with her hands as he approached her. And according to Markham, as he passed and was walking away from her, he emptied the spent shell casings from his pistol on the grass, which were later found. Okay? So, he doesn't shoot Mrs. Markham. He doesn't say anything really to Mrs. Markham. As he passes and walks away from her, you can see the route. He empties the spent shell casings from his pistol on the grass, which are later discovered. And we'll end with this today. At 1:17 p.m., 1:17, 2 minutes after Tippit is shot, a fellow by the name of Temple Bowley, this guy right here, Temple Bowley, and his daughter are driving by 10th and Patton. And they discover Officer Tippit lying next to the police car as they're driving by. So Bowley stops his car, leaves his daughter in the vehicle, and goes to assist Tippit, who he can see is very dead. Okay? So what would you do if you were Bowley at that time? He did. He got on the police radio in the car. He got on the police radio and called in the location of the fallen officer. And after he made the call, he and his daughter simply left. They did not stick around. Just left him there. Okay. Kids, we'll leave it at that today, but this gets crazier. It gets crazier.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to try to
Well, no, not anymore. Yeah, it's all different. We went there, we went in the right place. Then he's gonna walk this way, and you guys. Hey, Nick makes a good point, because he's into this. He got on his Google Maps to see where these streets were. They're not the same now. They've changed. When Blake and I went there, we really had to look closely to make sure we were in the right place, because the street isn't through anymore, and there's a school there. There's a big school there. So anyway, we'll continue this deal tomorrow and tell you where Oswald ends up.